I truly never imagined that the very day I had been counting down to for weeks would become the day my whole world fell apart. My name is Emma. At 36 years old, I thought I knew what my life looked like. June 12th was a day that was supposed to be filled with so much joy and love. It was a double celebration for us. Not only was it our 8th year as a married couple, but it was also my husband Ryan's birthday. I wanted to make sure he felt like the most special man in the world. I remember leaving my job early that afternoon, feeling a sense of excitement in my chest. I drove all the way across the busy, noisy city just to find that specific bottle of wine he loved so much. I even went to the best butcher's shop to pick out thick, perfect steaks for our dinner. When I got home, I spent hours carefully hanging little fairy lights all around our balcony. I wanted the evening to feel like a dream, with the soft glow of the lights reflecting in our glasses. I even went to a special bakery to get a custom cake made. I had our names written in beautiful, swirling icing. By the time the sun started to set, the apartment looked perfect. Everything was ready. But as the minutes turned into hours, a heavy feeling started to grow in my stomach. Ryan never walked through the door. I sat there in the quiet, watching the candles flicker and burn down. I sent him so many messages, asking if he was okay or if he was stuck in traffic. He didn't answer a single one. It was late at night when my phone finally made a sound. It wasn't a phone call from a husband who was sorry. It was just a short, cold email. He told me there was a big emergency at work, and he would make it up to me later. He didn't say he was sorry. He didn't wish me a happy anniversary. He didn't even acknowledge that it was his own birthday. I felt so small and unimportant sitting there in the dark. I slowly stood up and put the steaks in the fridge. I took down the lights I had worked so hard to hang. I went to bed still wearing the beautiful fancy dress I had bought just to impress him. I cried myself to sleep that night, feeling more alone than I ever had before. The next morning, the worry I felt turned into real, shaking fear. I called his office because I was so scared something bad had happened to him. But the person on the phone told me something that made my heart stop. Ryan had quit his job 3 days ago. He hadn't said a single word about it to me. I rushed back home, my mind racing with scary thoughts. When I walked through the door, I didn't find a man who was hurt or in trouble. I found Ryan calmly putting his shirts and shoes into a large suitcase. He looked at me with eyes that were cold and empty. He told me he had taken a new job as a boss in New Mexico, and that he had already signed a lease for an apartment there. Then he did something that broke my heart into a million pieces. He handed me divorce papers. Ryan looked at me and said that I had failed him as a wife. He told me that I worked too many hours, that I didn't keep our home looking perfect, and that I didn't make him feel like the center of my world anymore. I tried to speak up for myself. I reminded him that I worked full-time because I paid for half of everything we owned. I told him how I cooked for him whenever I could and how I had spent 8 long years trying to make him happy while he mostly ignored me. But he didn't care. None of my words reached him. He just picked up his bags and walked out the door without a second look. He left 8 years of our lives behind like they meant nothing. A few days later, I got a call from the people who owned our apartment building. Ryan had already told them we were leaving and had canceled our lease. They told me I had to move everything out by the end of the month. That was the moment the last bit of hope I had finally died. I realized that almost everything in that home had been bought with my own hard-earned money. The divorce papers sat on my kitchen table for days. Every time I looked at them, I felt a deep sadness. I realized I was missing a man who had already left me in his heart a long time ago. I finally signed the papers and decided that my future was more important than my painful past. Around that time, it was time for my high school reunion. At first, I wanted to stay home. I felt so ashamed that my marriage had ended, and I didn't want people to judge me. But I forced myself to go. That is where I met Daniel. He was someone I knew from school, and he had also gone through a very hard divorce. He didn't look at me with pity. He just treated me like a friend. We spent the whole night talking about our lives, the mistakes we had made, and how to find the strength to start over. For the first time in such a long time, I actually laughed. I wasn't just pretending to be okay. I was actually starting to feel okay. About a week after our divorce was legally finished, Ryan sent me an email. It had a picture of his new marriage papers. He didn't send it to be nice. He sent it to brag. He told me he had married a very rich woman named Victoria. Her family owned a huge business that sold houses and land. He told me that because of her, he now had a massive house, a fancy job title, and they even had a baby on the way. He wanted me to be jealous. He wanted me to feel like I had lost something great. But instead of feeling angry, I stayed calm. I wished him a good life. I was a bit curious, so I looked for Victoria on the internet. I realized that she had gone to school with me many years ago. Back then, she looked like a completely different person. It was clear she had many operations to change her face. A friend from the old days told me she had spent years trying to look different so she could marry someone rich. Many months went by before Ryan called me again. This time, he didn't sound proud. He sounded very upset. His little daughter had been born. Even though a medical test proved the baby was his, the little girl looked exactly like Ryan and Victoria used to look before they changed their faces with surgery. Ryan couldn't understand why his child didn't look like the beautiful pictures they showed everyone. I spoke to him gently. I told him that while you can change how you look on the outside, you can never change the truth of who you are inside. Our genes stay the same. The truth always comes out in the end. It made me so sad to hear that Victoria didn't even want to hold the baby because the child was as pretty as she wanted. I told Ryan that the only person in this whole mess who deserved love and kindness was their innocent little girl. Then I blocked his number and never spoke to him again. Now, almost a year has passed and my life is so different. I live in a small, warm apartment that is close to my work. I work fewer hours now, so I can take art classes and spend time with the friends I have forgotten about. Daniel has stayed a very good friend to me. We aren't together because we need someone to fix us. We are together because we both love being honest and having peace. I heard recently that Ryan's new life isn't so perfect. He cheated on Victoria, and their marriage is ending. Their daughter is even being treated unkindly because her parents only care about looks. I don't feel happy about his bad luck. I just feel sorry for their little girl. Looking back, I don't think of my divorce as a loss anymore. It was the moment I stopped trying to please someone who never loved the real me. Ryan chose money and fake beauty. I chose peace and being true to myself. Time has shown which choice was the right one. Some people spend their whole lives trying to hide the truth, thinking money can fix everything. But the truth is always there, waiting. My biggest one wasn't showing Ryan he was wrong. It was finding out that I could be happy all on my own.